Hello, my name is Tejvan Pettinger from Economics Help, and today we're going to look at the causes of unemployment. Unemployment is, of course, when people are actively seeking work but unable to find a job. So in a broad sense, there can be several types of causes of unemployment, and the two main ones are either demand side or the supply side. So on the supply side, we have factors such as voluntary, frictional, real wage, structural unemployment, and demand side is a lack of aggregate demand in the economy. So looking in more detail, if we take demand side first, this is perhaps the most visible form of unemployment because during a recession, unemployment rises quite dramatically, and this is caused by the lack of demand in the economy. So what is happening is that as the economy declines, as output falls, firms need less workers, so they take less on. And also, of course, some firms may go out of business, and so people are made redundant. And those who lose their jobs find it difficult to get a new one because the economy isn't expanding. And there have been various times when demand-deficient unemployment has been really very high. So in the Great Depression, unemployment often up to 20%, even more in certain areas. And in recent decades, we've had spikes in unemployment in the early 80s recession, the recession of 1990s, and of course the great recession of 2008 after the financial crisis. And so this causes a rapid rise in unemployment, but equally we tend to see this unemployment fall as the economy recovers and firms take on workers. Now, even if the economy is growing and is close to full capacity, we can still get unemployment. And to understand this cause of unemployment, we need to look at the supply side of the economy. The first type of unemployment is frictional unemployment. And this is just when people are in between jobs. It takes time to find the right job, and there's always going to be some frictional unemployment in the economy. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. You don't want people to get the first job that comes along, because if you've got a degree in economics, you might be wasted serving fries in McDonald's. But a more serious type of cause of unemployment is structural unemployment, and this can be due to occupational or geographical immobilities. And what we mean by that is, supposing you're made unemployed and you live in the northeast, and there may be jobs in London, but in practical terms it's difficult for you to move because you have a family living in the northeast. It may be hard to get housing in London. You need to get schools for your kids. So there's this geographical concentration of unemployment. And firms are more likely to invest in booming areas because that's where there'll be more demand, more income, and it can be unattractive to invest in areas of high unemployment because people don't have the money to spend, the economy isn't doing so well. So this can be a major cause of unemployment, geographical hotspots. Also, another cause of unemployment is when people don't have the right skills or qualifications for jobs that are available. So, for example, it may be that people have been worked many years as a manual labourer in the car industry or coal mining or steel factories, and for these jobs you don't need any qualifications or IT skills. But if these jobs close down because of globalization or deindustrialization, then these workers who used to have good, high-paid jobs in the manufacturing sector find it difficult to get the new jobs that are created in very different fields. So, for example, the unemployed coal miner may lack the skills, qualifications, and confidence to get a job in the IT sector or as a barrister or something like that. So this is a major problem because economies are constantly evolving and changing. Some industries are declining, others are growing. But if the workers don't have the flexibility and the skills to move from one industry to another, then this will cause unemployment. And this can be related to geographical unemployment because often this structural unemployment is concentrated in certain areas. So, for example, in America, you have the Rust Belt with all the big former automobile manufacturing places closing down and these areas becoming hotspots of high unemployment. Another potential cause of unemployment is called real wage unemployment or classical unemployment. And this is the observation that if wages are pushed above the equilibrium, demand for labour will fall. Firms don't want to pay the higher wages, and also supply will increase because more people want to work at higher wages. So if the labour markets are, if there's labour market imperfections, if we have very high minimum wages or very powerful trade unions pushing wages above the equilibrium, then this can cause unemployment. Now, it's worth pointing out that not all labour markets are a simplistic competitive market. You can increase minimum wages without necessarily causing unemployment because firms may have monopoly power. Higher wages may increase productivity, increase demand in the economy. So there's no guarantee that pushing up wages by minimum wages or trade unions will necessarily cause unemployment, but it is certainly a possibility. So if a minimum wage increased too quickly, too fast, then in certain areas, workers may find it hard to get a job because firms just don't want to pay the higher wages. Another potential cause of unemployment is voluntary unemployment. Now, voluntary unemployment is when even at the going wage rate, workers prefer not to take the job. So you could argue whether this is actually unemployment or not, because unemployment by definition means you should have to accept a job. But it is argued that if, for example, say unemployment benefits are very generous, then it reduces the incentive for the unemployed to actually take work, because after taxes and transport costs and the cost of working itself, you're actually no better off because you were better off with high unemployment benefits. So this is definitely theoretically possible, and it may have occurred to some extent in certain European countries like Germany. Unemployment benefits were quite generous a couple of decades ago. But to be honest, it's a very limited cause of unemployment in the UK, US and Western Europe at the moment. And the reason is that unemployment benefits are not particularly generous. They are significantly lower than average wage rates. And for most people, there is a fiscal incentive to actually take a job rather than stay on benefits. Now, it may be complicated in some cases. A single mother with many kids may get a lot of benefits and there may be a disincentive to work. But this cause of unemployment is relatively minor. So there can be dispute about the causes of unemployment. So, for example, a Keynesian approach is much more likely to take into consideration demand-deficient unemployment, the cyclical unemployment that occurs in a recession. Monetarist free market economists are a bit more skeptical, and they say that in the long run, unemployment really comes down to the natural rate, to the supply side unemployment. And so they emphasize the frictional, structural, real wage unemployment. And this is important to know what causes unemployment, because it's only when you know what causes it that you can pursue sufficient policies to overcome it. So, for example, if you believe that unemployment is primarily caused by a deficiency of demand, then this provides an incentive for the government to pursue expansionary fiscal policy to increase spending, create jobs, and get people back to work. So, for example, the New Deal in the 1930s, or more recent expansionary fiscal policy. But if you believe the causes of unemployment lie not in demand but in the supply side factors, then this presents a case to try to reform labour markets, try to make them more flexible, reduce power of trade unions, reduce minimum wages, make it easier to hire and fire workers, and that this would be your approach. Also, unemployment can vary due to, say, youth ethnic factors. So, for example, youth unemployment tends to be higher than adult rates. And this is partly because the statistics are massaged by people being in university